Squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legend of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and today we're going to talk about Poppy, because I have changed my mind about Poppy. Not in an extreme way, not in a sense that, I think, oh, Poppy's fine, don't worry about Poppy. No, I'm actually more worried about Poppy than I think others might be, because of course we all know Poppy needs a nerf. That's not a hot take. That's not anything that anyone else doesn't know. Even the devs know that. Apparently they, were going to nerf Poppy in the last balance patch, but they couldn't find something that they were happy with. And so, they didn't go ahead with it, basically. And, that's fair enough. Maybe that's fair enough if you consider that. Maybe it's better not to make a change than make a change that, would completely ruin Poppy. Obviously, people didn't necessarily like, Aphelios changes when he went from the best champion to the worst champion. So maybe that's fair enough that you would leave it as is. But when we talk about Poppy, I think a lot of people, have kind of come to a similar conclusion about what the best nerf is for Poppy. And I was initially on this train of thought as well, and that is, when we look at Poppy and what needs nerfed with Poppy, obviously the level up, unlike some champions, that are problematic, the level up doesn't matter at all. And that means that you can't change really the second part, and you can't really change the level up condition either, because those aren't the problematic parts. The problematic part is just the simple, ability of Poppy on her level 1 form, and that's the problem, and we can all agree on that, and that's great. So you can only change so many things, though. That means that you have to sort of focus on the problem, and there isn't much leeway to sort of think about how to fix it. The different suggestions basically have been, you could change Poppy's attack, change Poppy's health, maybe change Poppy's mana cost, or you can change the ability. That's basically your 4 options, and the most popular of those, and the one that I was initially on, was changing Poppy's attack to 3. Make her a 3/3. Which makes obviously her a bit weaker. It makes just, obviously any stat decrease makes something a bit worse. However, when I started thinking about that change more, because that seemed like, the most fair and balanced change to potentially make to Poppy, as I thought about that change more, I realized that that's not going to do anything. Changing Poppy's attack to 3 won't really make a difference at all. And here's why I think that. Well, basically, when Poppy comes down on turn 4 and attacks, and all the units get that extra buff, how many decks have a unit at that point that has 4 attack? It's not often you see it. It really isn't that often that a unit is gonna get not buffed from Poppy, even if she only has 3 attack. 4 just means that you're pretty much guaranteed, no matter what you play, that Poppy's going to buff it by turn 4. But with 3 on turn 4, it really won't make that much of a difference either. You'll still be able to go in hard with it. And the decks that people consider Poppy perhaps the most problematic, changing her to 3 attack literally won't make a difference. Because, in those super aggro decks, that go wide or whatever and then just attack and get a massive buff, none of those units, in those decks that are super aggressive, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change a thing because, they play a bunch of small units that will always get buffed by Poppy, whether she has 4 attack or 3 attack. The only thing that will change is that Poppy will go from, 5 attack when buffed to 4 attack, which, in my opinion, is a pretty small change because you're pretty much always going to block Poppy no matter what because you need to kill the Poppy. Almost always you're going to block Poppy. So really that doesn't make that much of a difference at all. And that's what I started thinking about this. That change, I just think that the problematic decks that Poppy would be in, if you only changed Poppy, that's not going to cut it. That really won't cut it. And Poppy will still be a menace on the game and things will stay pretty much the exact same. And that was obviously the problem with the last balance patch, that it just hasn't changed. I'm not going to say anything, but, pretty much anything. It really hasn't changed that much at all, meta-wise, in that balance patch. And I think a large reason was that, they didn't touch Poppy and they didn't touch Scion and, Mayor and cards like that they probably should have touched. And so that's the thing that I think Poppy can't change in that way. So how do we change Poppy then? Well, in my mind, it is always coming back to the ability. The ability is the problem. And to me, there is a couple ways you can change this. And this is something that other people have suggested as well. I'm not claiming that, I'm some original, unique founder of this idea. But, some people have suggested changing it to +1, +0 instead, which I don't mind personally. And, there's other things you could do. You could make it so that it's not equal. You could make it so that it has to be less power. Things like that, you could change it. You could make it instead of all allies, it's attacking allies only. That's another change that you could do. I think that those later two, perhaps, again, unless, like, if you did it attacking allies and 3/3, then I could start to see that would be a big enough nerf. If it was just like one of them, I feel like it wouldn't be enough. But I do think that if you were just to make one change, the one change that would be enough is just the one health. We've seen this on multiple cards now. Multiple cards have been nerfed in this pretty much exact way. And the ones that come to my mind, at least, are, if I can find it, the landmarks. Of course, we had two landmarks that literally got nerfed in pretty much the exact same way. Both the Grand Plaza and the Veiled Temple got nerfed in this exact way. Because giving health on these things, the idea of giving something an extra health, making it more sturdy, making it being able to survive, proved really challenging and has proved a problem in this game multiple times now. And you could say that Poppy is the third version of this. Now, this is quite interesting, I think, as a debate of these two cards, the Grand Plaza and the Veiled Temple, after they got nerfed, saw severe reductions in play. Now, this is my personal opinion. The Grand Plaza was a sufferer of the fact that it Scouts was kind of the best way of playing Plaza with the extra health, and so when that extra health went, it definitely did suffer from that. So Grand Plaza, it was a pretty significant nerf. On the Veiled Temple, I truly believe that this was more to do with Aphelios being nerfed rather than the Veiled Temple itself. I still think if Aphelios was good, the Veiled Temple would also be good, whether it gave the extra health or not. Because just getting a refill of 2 mana is more important than a stat, in my opinion, at least. So I do think that the Veiled Temple still would survive that nerf if Aphelios didn't get nerfed as well to the ground, which obviously the Veiled Temple is meant to synergize with. But both these cards have seen a big reduction of play ever since they got this nerf, and so that brings up the question, would Poppy also see this big reduction of play if she got the same treatment where she would only give attack? And that's quite an interesting question. And I think here's what would happen. Here's my opinion on what would happen. Poppy would still see play, I think, in the really aggressive decks, in the go-wide aggressive decks, and would still be a very good option for those decks, because giving everything an extra attack, if you're playing like a wide aggro game plan, it's still pretty good. However, Poppy would become, much less effective in decks like Bandletree. She obviously would still maybe see play there because she's dual region. But, she would be a lot less effective. There wouldn't be that, I'll win through Poppy way that maybe there is in Bandletree decks where you can, sometimes just win because Poppy gives you a win. That would probably disappear, which most of you would probably see as a good thing. And so that is why I'm kind of on this bandwagon. Now, of course, we don't get to test the cards in their different forms and what they really perform like. But if I had to take a guess, an educated guess, what I would think is that Poppy would still be played in those super aggressive decks and, would be able to find her place within the game and be pretty good there. But she wouldn't see play in decks that you kind of, I'm watching, an Alan ZQ stream, and he's playing Poppy in a Shellfolk deck because it just makes his units sturdy. Why would he not want his units to be nice and sturdy and be able to survive to the point where he can get Curious Shellfolk? Poppy should not be seeing play in those kind of decks. That just should not happen. So I do think that Poppy needs a big tuning down, and that's my point, that even if you took away Poppy's attack stat and made her a 3/3, Poppy, I think, still would see play in those decks, because the reason that you're doing it in those decks is to make your units more sturdy so that they can survive longer, so that you can reliably get to the end game where your actual win condition is. And whether she's a 3/3 or not, she's still buffing Mayor and Telescope and Conchologist and Octopus and all the other cards from Bandle City that see play, she would still just do that. So if you still wanted that to be the case, then you still would have that as an option. And that, I think, is where the problem is. And, you know, as soon as Poppy attacks, she would still become a 4-4. And, you know, a 4-4 is a relatively sturdy stat line. So that's why I think you can't nerf Poppy in that way. I just think that that would not be a big enough change to where she would come down. I am quite interested in taking away the 1 health of units. I do think that that would be a healthy change. And maybe I'd be willing even to say make the level up easier. You know, maybe instead of attacking with allies, it's just that Poppy has attacks 3 times. That means that things like Cataclysm would count for a Poppy level up. I wouldn't mind that either, right? Like, it's a slight change that, you know, would rarely matter in a game, but would for certain specific strategies. So that's how I'd probably do it, is help Poppy level up more so that she can become powerful in decks that really want to go in on Poppy, but take away the sort of blanket overall, you know, just generic value that Poppy is by taking away the health stat and making it so that, you know, she can't just help you get to whatever state you want the game to be in because your units are just bigger than they should be. And that is my opinion on Poppy. As I say, I've changed it. And so I'm very interested to see what you guys think of this change. Because I feel like most people feel, you know, that, oh yeah, changing Poppy to be a 3-3 would be fine. I was watching Swim's stream and he was talking about Poppy and being like, oh, she doesn't need that big of a nerf. And that's almost when it clicked with me that, wait a minute, she does need a big nerf. Hold on, she does need a really big nerf. She is kind of insane. And, you know, we've seen that champions like Draven, you know, got what everyone thought was going to be an absolutely massive nerf, and Draven's still, you know, decent. Sure, he's nerfed and he's worse than he used to be, but he still sees play in certain decks, and he still, you know, is probably in now a what I would call a healthy place, and I think that that is a good thing and pretty important. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and have a really nice day.